I was still wearing my funeral suit when my stepson pushed a termination packet across the boardroom table, casual as if he were sliding me a lunch menu. 5 days after I laid my wife to rest, he fired me, and he had absolutely no idea that I owned 67% of the company. The room smelled of scorched coffee and fresh toner. That's what stayed with me. Not the faces, not the wide windows overlooking downtown Toledo, just the bitter, overcooked coffee reheated one time too many, and the warm chemical tang drifting from the copier in the corner, the one that always overheated whenever someone printed contracts in bulk. Evan Brooke sat at the head of the table, in the seat Marianne always took, my wife's seat. The leather still held the faint impression of her, as if she might walk back in any second, smooth her skirt, tuck a pen behind her ear, and give me that look that said, "Frank, behave yourself." But Marianne wasn't coming back. Evan's hair was slicked back too perfectly, like he'd watched a tutorial on executive presence. He wore a navy suit that didn't quite sit on his shoulders and a silver watch that looked fresh out of the box. 33 years old and already playing king. He didn't look like a man who'd lost his mother. He looked like a man who'd been waiting for his moment. Around the table sat people who had been with Great Lakes Industrial Supply longer than Evan had been alive. Mark Dwyer, our CFO, 56, Toledo born and raised, the kind of man who kept an entire ledger in his head and a rosary in his glove box. Rita Sanchez from operations, 49, tough as road salt, could sniff out a bad deal through a closed door. Dennis Harland, the board chair, 61, old Rotary Club type, all handshakes and aftershave, always carrying wintergreen mints in his pocket. They looked at me the way people do at funerals when they don't know what to say, sympathy mixed with fear, because nobody expected this meeting to be about firing me. Evan cleared his throat. The sound echoed slightly because no one else was speaking. Even the HVAC seemed to pause, as if the building itself was holding its breath. "First," Evan said, clicking a small remote like he was about to start a PowerPoint, "I want to thank everyone for being here. I know it's been a difficult week." His voice had that polished calm you hear in corporate training videos, the kind that's been practiced in a mirror. I sat with my hands folded, black sleeves pulled over my wrists. My tie felt too tight. It had been Marianne's favorite. She'd picked it out years ago at a little shop near Franklin Park Mall. Said it made my eyes look warmer. That morning I'd tied it by muscle memory and grief. I wasn't thinking about board meetings. I was thinking about the last time I kissed my wife's forehead. Cold, too cold. "As you know," Evan continued, "the board has asked me to step in as interim CEO." Mark shifted. Dennis nodded stiffly. Outside, the wind rattled the window seams. Lake Erie wind in December doesn't care about funerals or titles. It just cuts straight through you. Evan glanced down at a folder, then back up at me. His eyes didn't soften, not even for appearance. "Frank," he said, the way you say the name of someone you met once at a conference, "I'm going to keep this simple." My stomach tightened. Anyone who says that is about to do something cruel. He slid the packet across the table, thick, clean, fresh staples. The company logo gleamed at the top of the first page, followed by the words "Separation Agreement." Mark inhaled sharply, like he'd been slapped. Rita's jaw clenched. Dennis blinked fast, as if trying to wake himself up. I didn't reach for it right away. I stared at the packet like it might strike. "Effective immediately," Evans said, "we're terminating your employment with Great Lakes Industrial Supply." The words didn't explode. They landed with a dull thud, like a box dropped on concrete. My ears rang, not loudly, just a pressure,
like my body refused to accept the sound. "You're firing me?" I said. "Yes," Evan replied. No pause. "We're moving in a new direction." "A new direction?" I repeated. The phrase tasted hollow, corporate filler meant to cover a mess. Evan folded his hands as if explaining a budget. "Frank, you've been here a long time. You've done what you can, but the company needs modern leadership." Mark's face flushed. "Evan." Evan raised a hand without looking at him. "Mark, please." Dennis cleared his throat. "Evan, this feels sudden." Evan smiled thinly. "Sudden, Dennis? My mother died. That's sudden." There it was, the first time he mentioned her. Not Marianne, not Mom, just leverage. He looked at me again. "Frank, I know this is emotional, but we have to think about optics." "Optics?" I said quietly. "Yes," Evan said, leaning back in Marianne's chair like it belonged to him. "Investors expect stability, and frankly, keeping the grieving husband in a senior role creates uncertainty." Something hot climbed my chest. Not rage, not yet. Grief turning into betrayal. "Frank isn't uncertainty," Rita said softly. "He's the reason half our suppliers still answer the phone." Evan gave her a polite, empty look. "Loyalty isn't a strategy." That told me everything. I pulled the packet closer. The paper felt crisp. The ink was fresh. Evan watched me closely. "I want you to understand," he said, "this isn't personal. My wife died Thursday. I buried her Saturday. You fired me Tuesday, and you want me to believe this isn't personal?" His eyes flickered, just for a moment.
"My mother built this company," he said. "She'd want what's best for it." "She'd want what's best for her people," I replied. "People adapt," he said. Dennis leaned forward. "Evan, Frank is—" "With respect," Evan cut in sharply, "I'm CEO." I opened the packet. Severance terms, benefits, non-disparagement. Cold, tidy language written by someone who'd never sat across from a man in a funeral suit. Then I saw it, buried on page 6, a clause stating I held no voting interest in the company. Sloppy, careless. I didn't react. "If you sign today," Evan said, tapping his pen, "this stays clean. Otherwise, it gets unpleasant." "Is that a threat?" Rita asked. "I'm explaining options." Marianne's voice surfaced in my head, calm as ever. "Quiet men finish things, Frank." I picked up the pen. Mark's eyes widened. "Frank." "It's fine," I said. I signed where it didn't matter, initialed pages that meant nothing. When I reached the voting clause, I paused just long enough to make Evan nervous. Then I initialed that, too. I slid the packet back. "Security will escort you out," Evan said. I stood. My knees ached. 59 isn't old, but grief adds weight. I looked around the table. Rita's eyes were wet. Mark was furious. Dennis looked ashamed. "Take care of each other," I said. Evan snorted softly. Security walked me to the elevator. Young men, avoiding my eyes. One held the door like I was a stranger in my own building. In the mirror, I saw myself. Black suit, hollow eyes, tie crooked, widower, fired man. The lobby doors opened. Cold air rushed in. Toledo winter slapped me awake. My truck sat in the lot, frost on the windshield. A 2014 Ford F-150. Paid off. Marianne used to tease me about loving it more than my bed. I scraped the frost with my hand. Didn't care. Driving home, past the Maumee River and faded brick buildings, it hit me harder than the firing. Evan hadn't just fired me, he'd tried to erase me. At home, the engine ticked as it cooled. Inside smelled like lavender detergent and a casserole from the church. I hung my coat up, reached into the pocket. My fingers touched brass. Marianne's paperclip, bent,
wrapped in a folded yellow note. 2 lines in her handwriting. Blue folder, top drawer, if he ever tries it. For the first time since the funeral, I felt something besides grief. It was anger, quiet, patient. The next morning dawned gray and bitter. Lake Erie wind rattled the siding. I stood in the kitchen holding coffee I didn't remember making, staring at the empty spot where Marianne set her purse. I sat in her recliner. It still smelled like her lotion, lavender and discipline. The blue folder was exactly where she said. Voting trust, share transfer, notarized, 67%. She'd done it 7 years earlier, after Evan asked what the company was worth. Owning it didn't feel powerful. It felt heavy. I drove into town, stopped at Rosie's Diner, bacon grease, burnt toast. I heard, that boy's got no soul. My phone buzzed, Rita, layoffs, Monday. I drove past the plant, shift change, faces I'd known for decades. At the cemetery, I set the paperclip at Marianne's stone. I just want to finish what we started, I said. My phone rang. Harold. Bring the blue folder. Lou's barbershop hadn't changed in decades. Talc and aftershave. You look like hell, Harold said. That checks, he added. In the back room, he read the documents. Well, I'll be damned, he said. He doesn't know. He will, I said. Only if you rush. By Sunday, the layoff list was real. 53 names. Evan held court at a chain restaurant, talking about efficiency and nostalgia. I almost stood, almost ruined it. Sunday night, I laid out my suit, slipped the paperclip into the pocket. Security texted, present tomorrow. Good, I said, let them watch. Monday came cold and gray. I signed in as a visitor. The boardroom was full, investors on screens, a reporter in the corner. Evan smiled like a groom. I sat in the back. He talked, slides, buzzwords. Before we vote, I said. Silence. I placed the envelope down. I hold 67%, I said. The room froze. Dennis exhaled. Hands went up. Evan was escorted out, quietly. The building steadied. Later, Tom Riley shook my hand. Thank you. By week's end, things settled. No victory lap, just work. One night, alone in Marianne's office, I held the paperclip. You trusted me, I said. As I drove home, I thought about patience. Quiet men finish things.